Hi, welcome to Lighten Up with Ashley. This is my YouTube channel focusing on how we can lighten up in more ways than one. So lightening up your mood, lifting your energy, raising your vibration, and tips and tools on how we can achieve it. Since my last video, talking quite a lot about raising your vibration and in particular the gut health section. So why talk about gut health? I will explain in this video about lots of details about how gut health is important, how gut health impacts on the entire body, and I'm really fascinated by how it links with the clarity of your mind. So before we delve into it, I wanted to make a disclaimer that I am not a qualified nutritionist yet. Maybe one day. I nearly did a naturopathic nutritionist course quite a few years ago, and then I had more children and things just get a bit more complicated. Anyway, I thought I'd do a little background about me because at the moment from this channel people probably just think I just teach yoga and probably have time for all my life, but I've done quite a few jobs in the past. So I've always absolutely loved science. I studied biomedical science in uni, which included immunology, virology, hematology, pharmacology, microbiology, pretty much all the ologies. I then went on to work for pharmaceutical companies where I studied a professional qualification with the ABPI, which is the Association of British Pharmaceutical Industry. So I learned loads about drug interactions, contraindications, drug pathways within the body. I spoke to doctors, nurses, consultants on a daily basis. I left Big Pharma with the conclusion that masking problems with pharmaceuticals and potentially creating new problems via side effects wasn't really sustainable and didn't align with me anymore. So despite my fascination with science and medicine, I also have always held an appreciation for the power of the body, the power of the mind, the energy that we hold within us, and the ability to heal ourselves. I went on then to study more anatomy and physiology during my yoga training and yoga therapy courses, and I was able to pursue my yoga teaching dream, and I became a Reiki practitioner. So that's a little bit about me, but what about our guts? So the connections of the gut with mind, body and skin are fascinating. It has an impact on every single area of our being. So have a think whether you've ever suffered with bloating, IBS, skin problems like eczema, psoriasis, rosacea, acne, dermatitis, whether you think you might have a hormone imbalance, if you have an autoimmune disease, which are becoming far more and more prevalent. Are you prone to anxiety and depression, brain fog, maybe even weight issues? No matter what you try, believe it or not, all of these can be symptoms of poor gut health. Okay, the role of the gut involves the whole of the digestive system. So we're talking about the whole system. So mouth, esophagus, stomach, pancreas, liver, small intestine, colon and the rectum. It has many roles in sustaining and protecting overall health in our bodies. It pretty much rules everything. It's not necessarily you are what you eat, but you are what you absorb. And quite a lot of us don't absorb the nutrients that we need in our body, and there's plenty of reasons why, which we'll delve into. So Hippocrates said all disease begins in the gut. So we can break down the word disease as well, as in if we're not at ease or at balance with ourselves, then we will be at dis-ease, disease. So it just means an imbalance in the body somewhere, quite often starting from the gut. He also said, let thy food be my medicine and my medicine be thy food. Talk about the gut bacteria first. So the gut has 100 trillion probably more, maybe not that exact, but 100 trillion bacteria within it. That's more bacteria than human cells in the entire body, which I think is fascinating. And this bacteria within us, also called the microbiome, is completely unique to everybody. So it's a bit like our fingerprints. Everybody's fingerprint is different. Everybody's gut biome will be completely different, which is exactly why you could be eating the same foods as somebody else, but they will react completely differently to you. I listened recently to a naturopathic nutritionist called Sarah Law, and she had a lovely analogy to describe the gut flora, the gut bacteria, the microbiome. So imagine that we've got a beautiful garden. So the good bacteria would be the beautiful flowers. They're all very diverse. They're all growing beautifully together. They need to be fed in order to grow, but they need to be fed good things. And in this beautiful garden, we will have some weeds all around it, which could be what we could call the bad bacteria. They're fine as long as they're controlled. We can have a couple of them, that's not a problem. But it's when those weeds start to take over, which is when problems start to occur in the gut. We could end up with a bit of a mess. And when this bad bacteria does overgrow, it can have a detrimental impact on our gut health. So these good bacteria control everything in our body. They extract energy from your foods, they produce vitamins, they absorb the minerals, they form barriers against any foreign invaders or pathogens, and they aid in the elimination of toxins. They hold huge responsibility for our immune systems as they're dealing with pathogens on a daily basis, dealing with things that are coming from the outside. So in every food that we eat, every drink that we drink, we don't necessarily always know where our food has come from, how long it's been on the shelf, who's handled it beforehand, how it's been packaged. So the microbiome protects us, as does our stomach acid. So how does our gut microbiome have an effect on our weight? So I was fascinated to learn that our gut biome will have a certain type of bacteria in it called Akkermansia. And this Akkermansia has an impact on our blood sugar levels. So if we have a low level of Akkermansia and our blood sugar levels are always spiking, our body then produces more and more insulin, which then encourages us to store more fat. And if we store more fat, we're generally going to put on more weight. So certain bacteria in our guts can encourage us to extract more from our food, meaning that the person that's extracting more from our food compared to somebody who's eating exactly the same thing, if they're not extracting as much from their food, they won't necessarily put on as much weight as the person who's got the bacteria that is trying to get all of the stuff out of the food. So these bacteria will tell you to crave more sugar, and it's because they want more sugar in order to feed themselves so that they can stay alive and they can thrive, which also has a negative impact on your gut biome because they're probably the bacteria that you don't want to thrive. So you can now blame all of your sugar cravings on your gut bacteria. Bacteria deaths block inflammation in the body, and they also speed up metabolism. So these are the ones that we do want in our body. We want to encourage these ones to thrive and survive. So you can see that these bacteria have a massive impact on our abilities to manage our body weight. And if you've struggled for forever, despite all your efforts, it may well be your gut microbiome is out of balance. So we just need to balance your gut microbiome. When there's inflammation in your gut and an excess of bad bacteria, this will cause inflammation in your body, which then creates a stress hormone called cortisol. And cortisol, when in excess, has the ability to add weight on, especially around the middle, so visceral fat, which is more of a concern because if it's around the middle, then the fat may actually be around your organs as well. Okay, moving on to our hormones. How are they affected by our gut microbiome? So all our hormones are linked, And if we have a stress response and we start to produce more cortisol, for example, it'll have an impact on our hormones, and the result of all these imbalances will present themselves as all the symptoms that we mentioned at the beginning of this video. So I suffered with a hormone imbalance in my early 20s. I had acne all on the lower part of my face. Sometimes it would be really angry, really red. It was depressing. I hated it. And I know that it was a hormone imbalance, and because it's in the lower part of my face, it was definitely linked to my gut health. And this hormone imbalance, I would pinpoint it down to a certain contraceptive pill. I kept changing them. I just wasn't in balance. I was just trying everything I could down the pharmaceutical route with actually sorting my guts out. When I did actually finally sort my guts out, my skin cleared up. Easy. It was much easier and much cheaper because I also went to acupuncturists, I went to nutritionalists, and it had a slow impact, but ultimately I was still eating the wrong food and have any prebiotics or probiotics put into my diet, and that has changed my world. I've just mentioned probiotics, so we may as well mention it now. Probiotics have been proven to reduce systemic markers of inflammation and oxidative stress. So if we have an inflamed gut, we probably have an inflammatory response elsewhere as a signal to tell us something is out of balance. But because we're too busy, because we're too stressed, because we don't think about ourselves, because you think about other people all the time, actually take a step back. This is where meditation comes in. Take a breath, take some time for yourself. Self-care is really important. I can't stress it enough. You can't look after other people and give them energy if you're empty. So you've got to fill your cup up. You've got to give yourself some time. And once we start listening to ourselves, it's amazing what signs and signals you'll start to realize and go, oh, of course, my body's been trying to tell me for years. So we also have loads of neurotransmitters in our body, signaling all sorts of things back and forth from our gut to our brain. But we have a neuropeptide called substance P, which is produced in the skin, the gut, and the brain. And they are all linked. They all communicate, which I find fascinating. So the gut microbiome also promotes the release of this substance P, which then influences lipids, fatty acids, and how much sebum we produce. So that can result in oily skin, blocked pores, acne. You can see where I'm going. So we need to look after our guts. The good bacteria need feeding. They need to be kept alive. They need to thrive in an environment that is suitable for them in order for our garden to look beautiful and for homeostasis and balance in our whole system. So how is the nervous system linked to the gut microbiome? We have a really long nerve which connects the brain to the gut and vice versa. It's called the vagus nerve, and it sends signals of these neurotransmitters up and down the vagus nerve all day long, as I mentioned before. So this is where the communication really links in with the gut and the brain. It's not called the second brain for no reason. Loads of people say we have two brains in the body, and the gut is vital in terms of the communication of the neurotransmitters. So if there is inflammation in the gut, there will be a mayday signal sent up to the brain, which will be a stress response, and it will cause a whole cascade of emotions: anxiety, fear, stress, worry, headaches, panic, all sorts of things, all because of these signals going back and forth. And studies have shown that people with IBS and who suffer from Crohn's disease have reduced vagal tone. So the vagus nerve isn't working properly, causing those distorted signals and creating gut spasms and symptoms that you get with those conditions. So as I've mentioned, the brain and the gut communicate via these neurotransmitters up and down the vagus nerve. For example, serotonin, which is the happy hormone, that can regulate our body clock. So insomnia can be a result of a reduced amount of serotonin, and that will have an effect on the circadian rhythm, so your sleep pattern may be all over the place. Really interesting fact is that most neurotransmitters aren't actually produced in the brain, they're produced in the gut. So anxiety and depression can be very likely to be linked with the gut rather than the mind. So I talk about mind health a lot. Meditation can help if you're depressed, you're angry, worried, fearful. All of those things can definitely help, and deep breathing. But gut health has a massive impact. So if we can do a bit of everything, that would help you to get clarity of mind. That will help you to really tune into your gut instinct, because your body is so clever. Your intuition is there for a reason. You are here to guide yourself. You know all the answers, but you don't trust yourself because we're too consumed with toxins and poisons and information overload, and we're so overwhelmed and so stressed that we just go along with what we're being told to do because we haven't got the ability or the capability or the time to actually tune in, trust our instincts. And that's really important. We must start to trust our instincts. The gut biome also produces a neurotransmitter called GABA, and GABA helps to control the feelings of fear and anxiety. Now, from experience from working for pharmaceutical companies, there are many pharmaceuticals that target the GABA neurotransmitter. I used to sell one myself, but ultimately this can be controlled by gut health without having to go down the pharmaceutical route. Yes, it can be a quicker fix, but ultimately working on your gut health is going to be more of a long-term fix. So next is the gut lining. What is the role of the gut lining? It should allow us to absorb the nutrients, minerals and vitamins that we need in order to deliver to the rest of the body. So it should be allowed to penetrate through the gut lining, then it will be into the bloodstream, and that's where it will be delivered to the cells that need those nutrients. If we're unable to absorb properly and we're unable to deliver those nutrients to the cells because of inflammation, because the gut lining might be sluggish and there won't be any tone there, there's just no efficiency there. So this can affect all areas of the body because these cells are waiting for the minerals, vitamins and nutrients that it needs, and if they're not delivered, then it will show up in poor skin, it will show up with poor mental clarity, brain function. The list goes on to the impact on not being able to absorb the nutrients properly. Gut lining can also be affected by what's known as leaky gut. So this in essence is when the cells of the gut lining can be pulled apart, creating holes. So that allows larger proteins, undigested proteins, through the gut lining wall. These undigested proteins can then enter the bloodstream. Another amazing fact is that 80% of our immune system is in the gut lining. It is our entry point or our first defense for any foreign pathogens and bacteria to enter the body via the food and drink that we are consuming. We're therefore designed in a very clever way in order to defend our body's health before foreign materials enter our bloodstream. However, if we have holes in our gut, this will overstimulate our immune response, and it will go into overdrive against any of these foods and undigested proteins trying to escape. Then the gut becomes hypersensitive, and then that can result in food intolerances. If this process continues, the system then just gets confused, it starts being overstimulated again, and it starts attacking our own body cells, and it will target the proteins that manage to escape and its own cells, creating an autoimmune disorder. Okay, so let's move on to our skin. Our skin is a huge living, breathing organ, and one of our body's defense systems, acting as a chemical, physical and antimicrobial barrier. Chemicals can absorb into the skin, and studies have shown that stress and gut inflammation can impair the integrity of the skin barrier and can actually cause the skin barrier to become leaky as well. If the skin is then leaky, that can lead to skin inflammation and infections, which is another reason why gut health is so vital. Okay, so here's the solution bit. What can we actually do about this? So feeding your gut with good bacteria. So we need to focus on foods that contain polyphenols. So fruit and veg. There's a whole range of fruit and veg that have polyphenols in, or you just need to go on the internet and have a look. Building a healthy gut can also be achieved by feeding these good bacteria. So we can feed those with fibers, especially prebiotic fibers. So what contains prebiotic fibers? Asparagus, onions, garlic, kale, dandelion root, chicory, apples, cacao powder. So that's a good one. That's chocolate. It's chocolate, guys. Cacao powder. So problem foods, they include gluten. I think the majority of us know that gluten isn't necessarily great for the gut. However, some people can tolerate it, some people can't. So it all depends on our gut microbiome. So gluten actually can cause the gut lining to pull apart. So in some people, the gut lining will pull apart momentarily and go back together. So it won't allow any undigested proteins to leak through, and therefore there won't be an immune response. However, some people will have a gut lining that will be pulled apart by the gluten for quite some time, enough time for undigested proteins to move through the gut lining wall. That will create an inflammatory response, so your immune response. It will create inflammation. It will create all of those symptoms that we've discussed throughout this video. And gluten is hidden in everything. It is hidden in sauces, it's in thickeners, it's in the majority of packaged and processed foods, cereals, breads, pastas. So having a little bit now and then is fine unless you're really intolerant to it, but being mindful and conscious about what you're eating and what the ingredients are, because it is hidden in a lot of stuff. And some people might think they're being healthy by having cereal for breakfast and then a sandwich for lunch and then pasta for dinner, but actually that's a mass overload of gluten in one day, and we really don't need to eat that much gluten. We also have refined carbohydrates and processed sugars. These can cause inflammation again. These are all in processed and packaged foods. They may contain artificial sweeteners, which include aspartame, acesulfame, sucralose. These have all been proven to have a big impact on the diversity of our gut bacteria and ultimately ruin those lovely flowers in our garden. And also things that we might want to avoid is alcohol. I know, but it depends on what type of alcohol, how much alcohol. So it can cause inflammation depending on how much you drink. And not being able to deal with any stress in our lives. There is always going to be stress in our lives. We're always going to have certain amounts of stress here and there. So we need tools to deal with that stress in order to keep our gut healthy as well. So meditation, yoga, all of those little tools that can help with reducing stress. Anything that you do, anything creative, anything that takes your mind off things, anything that brings joy into your life, that can help to manage stress. So if we can't deal with stress, it will have a massive impact on the gut health because it will create an inflammatory response because of the hormones that are released when we're stressed out. Stress also reduces our stomach acids, and the stomach acids are what aids the digestion of our foods. The stomach acids also kill off any pathogens, any bacteria that come into our body via the foods that we've eaten. So a reduction in that stomach acid can also leave the gut vulnerable to infections and bacteria. So another lovely simple solution that we have also mentioned earlier is adding in a probiotic. So a good quality probiotic supplement is really important. However, most people don't realise that the probiotic bacteria that you're taking needs to be fed. So adding the prebiotic is what needs to be done. So as I mentioned earlier on, there are foods that contain prebiotic fibres and polyphenols. These can all help to feed the probiotic that you're adding in. But in order to make it really efficient, the ideal supplement would be to add a pro and a prebiotic together. So supplements that have a probiotic and prebiotic in the same supplement is called a symbiotic. That's the one you need to be looking for, is a symbiotic supplement, because it just makes everything so much more efficient. An extra bonus would be to add in extra digestive enzymes. As we said earlier, digestive enzymes can be depleted in times of stress. They also produce less and less as we grow older. So adding this in can enable us to digest our foods more efficiently, break down those foods, and therefore be able to absorb the nutrients, the minerals, the vitamins that our body and our cells desperately need in order for your skin to glow and for you to feel healthy, clarity of mind, all of these things that we have talked about. So we're near the end. The reason that I am so fascinated by gut health is because I have managed to sort my gut out, and it's because of the symbiotic supplement that I have managed to come across and all this research. Good diet, good mind health, it all goes together. So if we can do a bit of holistic health, mind, body, soul, all of that stuff, you will be able to raise your vibration, lift your energy, not get bogged down with all the stuff that's going on, not get over-consumed with things. You'll be clearer, clarity of mind. You'll be able to follow your gut instinct rather than having to be told what to do all the time. Because if you can trust your gut instinct, you'll be able to feel things. So if somebody says something to you or tells you to do something, you'll feel whether it's right or not for you. We're all different, we're all unique, much like our gut biome. Everything is different for every single person. So you need to make the choice that is right for you. And as long as you are confident that it is right for you and it feels good, then that's amazing. And that's what we're aiming for, basically. The supplement that I have found is in powdered form as well, because there has been some studies to show that capsules and tablets, depending on how your gut microbiome works, and obviously if you're taking these supplements, it's probably because you have an imbalance. Sometimes the gut cannot digest these tablets or capsules. So there's studies that have shown that these capsules and things just go straight through. So you think you're doing yourself good, you think that you're taking the right stuff, but actually your body can't break it down or absorb it. So it's kind of pointless. So I found a powdered one, which is amazing. So it's got prebiotic, it's a probiotic, it's got digestive enzymes in it as well. It's in a powdered form, so really efficient. So that's an insight into gut health. I'm fascinated by it, how it impacts our entire system and how easy it is to solve these long-standing issues. Now I know eliminating foods is difficult. I know cravings take over. It is hard. There will be step backs in the journey. However, if you're suffering with any of these symptoms and you know that this can result in much better health, much better immunity, much better skin, much better clarity of mind, and just feeling comfortable in yourself. You may lose weight depending on your gut biome, and if that's one of your targets, that might actually happen. So it's well worth a try. So with a real focus on your goal, your end goal, you may be able to get there. So focusing on gut health, it's so worth it. So taking full responsibility for your own health, your holistic health, is so empowering. It's so valuable. I recommend everyone to do it. So if you need any more information on anything that I've said in the video or the supplement that I've been talking about, there will be a link in the description, and I hope that it helps. Once again, I keep threatening to do meditation and yoga videos. That is what I will be doing, I promise. So thank you for listening to me. I hope it helps. Please like this video, please share it with anyone you think might find it useful, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That would be amazing, and then you will be notified when I actually finally get round to posting yoga videos and my next meditation. Okay, have a lovely day. Bye.